Yep, that's right. We could very well be seeing a live-action remake of Disney's Hercules that very much looks like this, as producers call the film inspired by TikTok in a new interview. Before we get into the details, make sure to weigh in down below with your thoughts on this, frankly, quite depressing news. In a brand new interview for trade paper Variety, producers Joe and Anthony Russo, best known as the directors of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, have given us our first official details on their upcoming live-action remake of Disney's classic 1997 animated film Hercules, set to be directed by Aladdin Helmer, Guy Ritchie. And, well, we're already off to a bad start. In the article, the Russos were asked about returning to Marvel, noting that they have no plans to do so until the end of the decade. However, when pressed on working with Marvel's parent company Disney on Hercules, Joe let slip some interesting new details. This is what he had to say. "We have an amazing relationship with them that we've built over a decade. I think we have a point of view on how they can stretch the limits of their IP moving forward, rather than playing IP management. Hercules will be a little bit more experimental in tone, a little bit more experimental in execution. I think they're excited to see what we can all bring to it in a way that isn't just a reinterpretation of the animated film. There are questions about how you translate it as a musical. Audiences today have been trained by TikTok, right? What is their execution of what that musical looks like and feels like? That can be a lot of fun and help us push the boundaries a little bit on how you execute a modern musical." Yep, you heard that right. Hercules is set to be inspired by TikTok. Of course, TikTok is essentially the most popular social media app going around at the moment and home to millions of bite-sized viral clips, many of which are wholly sappy and cringeworthy song and dance sequences. How this is supposed to translate into any film is beyond me, but how this is supposed to translate to a Disney remake is just completely baffling. Of course, these details follow recent news that NBC Universal are currently in the process of striking development deals with TikTokers to become the next generation of television creators. So it's safe to say that the film industry is set on going down a very weird and quite frankly dangerous path. The original Hercules was quite experimental in nature to begin with an anachronistic American soul soundtrack applied to tales of ancient Greek gods and monsters. This incredibly risky move was fairly hip and modern for the time, but managed to work insanely well, turning the film into one of the last great films from the Disney Renaissance. However, instead of sticking with what works and what has become iconic to Disney, the Russos seem hell-bent on reinventing the wheel again when it doesn't need to be. I've said many times that I'm a fan of these Disney remakes. Yeah, that's right, and I have enjoyed most of them to varying degrees. Even in the ones that most people seem to absolutely hate, I usually find something to enjoy. And I have always said that these movies work best when they're given a little bit of room to breathe and do something a little bit fresh and new. However, with that, I've also said that the inherently iconic elements of the films need to remain the same, because once we start moving too far away, well, we get TikTok Hercules. Disney remakes have had a bit of a mixed reception. Many have performed very well commercially, but critical reception is usually pretty lukewarm. I think Disney has finally realized that with the last few doing very poorly on both fronts, they need to make a change. But I'm not sure that this is the way to do it. In fact, I'm absolutely certain that this is not the way to do it. Disney, under the leadership of Bob Chapek, the former president of Disney Consumer Products, has been insanely disappointing. With a strong focus on streaming and a seeming disregard for the theatrical experience, it's clear that Chapek's Disney cares about one thing and one thing only: making cheap and lazy consumer products. Say what you will about Iger's tenure, but he at least did his best to greenlight great stories and well-made productions that would appeal to all. We want our Disney remakes to be fun, exciting and fresh while being simultaneously respectful to source. On the surface, this isn't something that seems all that hard to do, but it's something that filmmakers have struggled with over and over again. Even I, a staunch fan of these movies, am starting to waver on them. I'm honestly hoping that these quotes have been misinterpreted or not given enough context, and that I'm perhaps overreacting like we have all been guilty of on the internet at some point. But I will say, if this is the future of our live-action Disney remakes, count me out. And with that, I want to know your thoughts on TikTok Hercules. Join the conversation down below. If you want to hear me talk more toons, make sure to check out the links on your screen.